We're in Lake Placid, the venue for the 1932 and 1980 Winter Olympic Games in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. The home of the Miracle on Ice, one of the most pivotal moments of American winter sporting history. And we're at the Adirondack track for the second and deciding heat of the first race in the 4-man Bobsleigh World Cup. I'm Martin Haven, sitting alongside me Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries. And Kaylee, Steve Holcomb, here in February in the World Championships, won every medal there was to win. He lies second behind Alexander Zubkov. 1500s should be an achievable gap to try and overhaul, do you think?
It definitely is. I mean, 1500s in the blink of an eye. We've seen with the Russians, with the Germans. I mean, just anything is possible. So second run, I mean, 1500s is nothing. Steve's got the experience on this track. He knows it. Zubkov, however, though, is, you know, he's elite. He's up there, so not going to make it easy or give it away to Steve, but it should be some very great competition.
Yeah, he had a really tough time in the World Championship. Zubkov disqualified in the first of 4 heats in the 2-man competition. Almost kind of put the stamp on the whole fortnight for him. Didn't end up with the gold medal in either 2 or 4-man discipline. But the first heat here was really strong. And as we talk about so often, running on sheet ice, see Marco Hubenbecker, his foot slipping off the little bunk on the back, the little step. And Alex Mann hauls 220-odd pounds of like a prostrate German into the sled with one arm. That's some lift. Well, they ended up in 10th place. Manuel Mahara lies in 3rd place. Germany 3rd, just ahead of Nick Cunningham of the USA. And at this end of the field, again, Kaylee, anything could change. Of course, the crowd will be rooting for this man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Holcomb's a favorite here, and Nick Cunningham is going to be a favorite as well going in. Everyone's going to be rooting for those guys' home track, and they're American in their home, so it is what it is. But definitely Zubkov, the one to beat. Mahara's not going to give that up easy. He's an experienced pilot. He knows what he's doing, and he's coming for it. He was not happy yesterday with his 2-man result, so he's really looking to...
Well, since February 2011, nobody other than a Russian or a German has won a 4-man World Cup race. Of course, Steve Holcomb did win here in February this year in the World Championships. You'd argue an even bigger gold medal to win. But Alexander Zubkov leads, and if he can start his season with victory on the Americans' home track, then we head to Steve's hometown of Salt Lake next week, with Zubkov definitely having a feather in his cap. Well, the fast 20 from the first heat go in reverse order. Corey Butner, 20th place for USA, will go first. And Steve Holcomb, there you say, making final preparations to the sleds. Everybody polishing the runners to mirror perfection. And Kaylee, this is so much a part of the sport. You spend so many hours doing this compared to the few seconds you spend driving.
You do. We actually were out one time, and we spend less than 20 hours in probably a lifetime, 10 years of doing this sport, legitimately, you know, actually sliding down a track. The rest of it is polishing the runners and, you know, preparing sleds.
Yeah, I said basically you are gym bunnies who occasionally get on the ice. Well, there is our start list, 20 down to 1. Alexander Zubkov, the leader, will have his lead to defend when he goes last off the top of the hill. Well, yesterday the mercury was falling. Today it is rising. It's about +3 degrees at the start area. There's Alana Myers and the rest of the US crew. Some familiar faces and some new ones as well, as in your crew on the podium yesterday. 3 rookie break women filling the podium of the women's race. Well, let's get into the action. Corey Butner for the USA, first off the hill. That means he's 20th after the first heat, and he was in the silver medal position in yesterday's 2-man race. He had a good start with his crew of 5:09, Kaylee, but that was about the best part of the whole run.
It was. I mean, he's definitely going to be looking, and you're going to see him move up, I guarantee, quite a few spots, but 4-man just doesn't seem to be his day today.
Well, if he gets a good second heat, anything better than the first one could be considered an improvement. We may see him in the leader's box for some time. You know, the first thing they're looking at is beating that 5:09 start, and there's drama there. Laszlo Vandrusak didn't quite get in. His foot slipped on the wrong side. 5:11.
We seem to be seeing that in a trend. I mean, first World Cup of the season, guys are a bit rusty. You practiced all summer with the loading, but until you actually get in a race day scenario, it is very different, and we're seeing that today.
Well, that's one of the advantages, I guess, that Canada has. You've got that start track, that ice house in Calgary, so you can actually practice it on the ice before you get into race situations, or even onto an ice track to run.
We do. We're very lucky with that sense. And I mean, September we had the U.S. guys come out. We get the internationals that come out and do it and use our push facilities, and it's a huge advantage that Canada has, definitely.
24.8 miles an hour through the chicane, 77.6 miles an hour. Not the greatest speed, definitely. He could do with more than that. Corey's first run was a little untidy. He was quicker in the chicane, though. 56.06 slide, so just a whisker slower than his first heat. It is warmer, and the track is definitely changing. The question is that good enough to move him up the order?
Racing this second heat should be no exception. We would expect we're going to see...
You see the U.S. guys there? I mean, number 3, you get stuck a little bit, little trip up, and it ends up just setting everybody back. No one can get into position, and that's why it's so critical. Everything that you've given it here at the start, every little bit, you trip up, you know, you have that little bit of a dip. It just takes a couple seconds, and the velocity and what you put into the sled down into corner 1 ends up suffering a little bit, and that just kills your speed and time by the bottom.
Corey Butner leads the race for the USA. This is Martin Gulliker in Swiss 2. They lie in 19th place. They were 700s quicker, I beg your pardon, 900s quicker than USA 3 in the first heat. And again, that is the blink of an eye, one little steer in the wrong place, and that will vanish instantly. I'm going to have to go and have a look and see when was the last time we saw Martin Gulliker in a World Cup race. I'm thinking it must be 3-4 years ago, probably. They started 5:14, which is midfield time. Not the neatest load. There's a couple of rookies in the Swiss team, and it does take time to really polish that perfection.
It really does. I mean, 5:14 to 5:15, that's pretty consistent. So overall, you know, they're gonna be looking to improve that World Cup by World Cup. But for the first one, they got to be pretty happy with those starts.
10th up on Corey Butner, 500s at the start. Added to that, some pretty sharp transitions in the first few corners, but he is motoring away now.
It definitely does. Like you said before, it's been years and years since we saw Martin on the World Cup circuit here. So this first World Cup is critical, and you're going to see him just dust off a few of those little cobwebs that he's going to have being back on World Cup from spending years away.
125.4, identical speed through the chicane to the first heat, and he comes across the line in the lead. So we're not going to see much of Corey Butner at all. Not his day at the office. That much, I'm sure he's going to agree. 55.89, 300ths of a second slower than his first heat, Gulliker. And Martin was 19th out of start shed in the first heat. So the track is holding up, definitely.
It is. Those 2 runs pretty consistent. Consistent starts, consistent down times. I mean, you'll see him come through here on the chicanes. He almost makes it through a few little taps. You see the front of those runner tips just moving ever so slightly. A little bit high at the entrance of 17, but he gets it under control right away. And, you know, overall, very good runs, and he should be happy with his first World Cup back.
Well, 100th different at the start, 300ths difference on the run. That's almost a carbon copy. Next up, Justin Kripps, Canada 3. James McNaughton, Luc Dimitri, Jean-Nicolas Carrière. Eurotech sleds built in Holland by Dutch race team.
They're a fairly new crew, but they've really bonded over the last couple of years as a team, and you're really going to see these guys grow together as a team on tour and just continue to get stronger and stronger each week.
Good start, 5:14. Again, if you're within a couple of hundreds, it is empirically almost impossible to tell the difference, I suppose, even for the athletes.
It really is. I mean, ideally you want to be, you know, exact same times, if not better second time, but you're tired at this point. The track takes a lot out of you, and you're giving it everything. So there's not much you can do but give it your all and just hope that it's similar to the first one.
One thing you notice when you come to the track for the first time, and the solid cameras show you the vibration, the noise of these sleds.
Yeah, he's bleeding time a little bit all down the track. A few little bumps down the chicanes, nothing major serious. But you'll see, I think speed's just a little bit slower. 200s now behind, he seems to be holding it well. Nice transition, 19 to 20, as he crosses the finish line, 300s up. He had a really great bottom, that was awesome. So he should be very proud with that. All 3 of those guys should be very proud. They put down 2 very good starts for their first World Cup as a team, and look to see these guys improve in the next couple races.
Identical time to Martin Gallagher, and he held on to his 300ths of a second first round advantage. Justin Kripps, the leader. Busy day yesterday. We caught up with our men's winner earlier on in the show. This is our women's champion. And she had a really tough job. Sarah Reid of Canada led Heat 1, led Heat 2. Normally that would be good enough for gold. No, she had to go to bed and sleep on it and come back for a top 10 shootout yesterday. And she held her nerve. Whatever demons might have come during the night didn't affect her. And it was a Canada 1-2, the first time since 2007 Calgary race that Canada have had a 1-2 in women's skeleton World Cup racing. That was her first ever podium appearance, and she was on the top step. And you must remember your first ever World Cup medal. What a day, what a life changer that is.
You do. It just, you know, you get to the point when you realize that everything that you work for is possible, and you know you can be there consistently. And her next steps is just going to again consistently be on that podium. She can get there once, she can get there repeatedly, and you know she's got a year now to do it before Russia, and it's possible. So I'm super happy for her. She did an amazing job yesterday.
She really did, really, and with the overnight as well, it was almost like a World Championship race. The explosion of noise and power of the bobsleigh start. This is Russia 3 with Pieder Puca.
They're in, they're down, good clean start. 5:16. I mean, very consistent to their first run. 5:15. So 2 good consistent starts from these guys.
Justin Kripps, Canada 3, our race leader. And Zakharov had just 600ths of a second in hand, 500ths now. These are tiny, tiny margins.
They are. I mean, there's not much you can really do except for, you know, keep going with it, try and get every little advantage you can on this entire track. You're looking for your crew to sit properly. You're looking for every tiny little bit. 100th of a second is less than the width of a hair, so any little tiny thing that can go on, head bobbing, the extra little movement in the runners of the sleds, you really don't want to give up anything. 200ths is, you know, we'll see if he crosses it.
Oh,
100th behind.
Well, he was a 1/10 of a mile an hour slower, of a kilometre an hour, I beg your pardon, not even a 10th of a mile an hour slower through the speed trap. And that tiny little difference was enough to rob him. At this speed, what they're doing, 78, 79, 80 miles an hour at the finish line. What's 100th of a second, maybe?
Yeah.
2-3 inches?
You see the heads. You shouldn't be seeing their heads moving as you come out of there. You want your guys in the back to be solid. It makes the driving that much easier for the pilot. You want everybody to be solid and stable and act as one unit. And right here you can see individual heads moving, and that could have been the difference in 1/100th. You never know. 100th is literally nothing, but the Canadian guys are really happy and should be with their race today.
Well, look, you might expect a 100-metre sprint to be won by 100th, or the difference is between 100. This is 1,500 metres of ice at 70, 80 miles an hour. To be that close is just unbelievable. Simone Bitatto of Italy next up. He was 16th in the first heat, just a couple hundredths in front of Zakharov of Russia, a couple of hundreds behind Jürgen Lowacka. So we're in one of those really tight little clumps of sleds where you can have a good run and pick up 2 or 3 spots or drop 4 or 5 in the blink of an eye. Italy's driving coach, the great Wolfgang Stampfer of Austria, is the man who built the sled, and his sleds were always habitually very good at high speeds. He has some kind of alchemy of finding speed when the velocity is really high.
Making their way through the Devil's Highway.
Almost 2/10 behind now, but you know Simone Bitatto, excellent pilot, and that definitely is possible to be made up as he comes down through this section of the track.
He lost so much at the start and giving away 1,500ths almost to the quicker starters behind him. And it takes a while to kind of bring that back. But the gap is coming down gradually. The question is, has he got enough ice?
$1,300, I think he's going to run out of time and space. His straightaway, you know, coming from 14 down the rest of the way. Yeah, and the guys, they drop one. Canadians move up
another 500,
spot.
600 meters, he'd have been right there again. But, you know, you can only race with what you've got. You know, if we could go to St. Moritz every weekend, A, we'd all love it, but B, he'd like it a whole lot more as well.
Exactly. The start's crucial. The start is very crucial in our sport, especially nowadays when you've got guys coming from, you know, CFL and a lot of other high professional sports, track and field. You've got Lolo, and it just, the start is critical in our sport, and the tracks just aren't long enough to make that up.
Simone Bertazzo is the fastest man through the chicane, but he is not our race leader. That remains Justin Kripps of Canada, ahead of Nikita Zakharov and Martin Gallagher of Switzerland. Well, all these sleds fully laden with the prime beef, corn-fed and everything else, 630 kilos, of which you've got to say 400 is muscle. It is a big beast to steer. The steering, the whole of the weight rotates around the front axle, which is in front of the driver's feet. That means this is more tail happy than a 1930s Grand Prix racer. Justin Kripps and crew are our race leaders. Some very narrow margins. We still have 15 sleds to go. Little stumble from Jürgen Loacker getting the set. Comes off the back blocks to the front handle. The crew motor through the 50-meter timing beams. First start for Loacker, 5:23, 5:26.
That's 300ths off their first push, and that's quite a distance. That's a 10th off of Justin Kripps and a couple of the other guys, over a 10th from first run. Not a good exit out of 3 there. Definitely going sideways, and the hit, that's going to cost him some time. He's already 600ths behind now. We'll see what he can do. He's an experienced pilot. He's definitely going to make some of that up. We'll see at this next split, but overall, 100th behind, he's making up a lot. So we'll see how he can do down through the bottom, what his speed is like.
He's a 10th faster than Justin Kripps in the first heat, and 10th slower at the start, so he's going to have to drive his way better than Kripps down the course. 1:25.5, that's better speed than the Canadian sled as well, so he'll open up that advantage.
He will, and he had a great straightaway out of 14 down into 17. So his driving experience definitely brought him up. Started a bit behind at the start, but that was easily made up by corner 9.
Well, he was actually 100th of a second slower down the run than Justin Kripps, but the first round advantage kept his nose in front, and it would just have been the nose of the sled as well.
You see the push bar there, it's got some holes in it. A, less for aerodynamics, B, for weight. It's just a way for them to lighten that sled a little bit more, just so that, you know, the guys can be a little bit heavier. Ideally, you want the people to be as big as possible, the sled to weigh as light as it can possibly be, in order to, you know, to push something a lot faster.
The voice of Kaylee Humphries, Olympic bobsled champion and a race winner here on this track yesterday. Joining me, Martin Haven, in the booth for the call of this first 4-man race of the season. Well, there is your race leader, Jürgen Loacker. The Canadians offering their congratulations. We talked about this in the first heat. You know, this is such a big family now with the men's bobsleigh, the women's bobsleigh, men and women's skeleton. But it remains universally true that it is the crew versus the track that is what this sport is all about.
It is. Everybody wants to see everybody get down safe and just have their best run, and the best people will be on top every single time. And, you know, you believe in being the best, and, you know, it's all pretty individual, but everybody definitely is a close-knit family.
Everybody faces the same problems. Everybody's up long before dawn. Everybody's polishing runners into the darkness and freezing as they're trying to warm up on icy tracks. And when it comes down to it, you get this minute in which you do what you do best. This is a nice run from Jan Verber of the Czech Republic. 5:16 getaway is pretty decent in this 14th place where he was after the first heat.
He is 600ths up now over Jürgen Loacker, and still seems to be gaining. We'll see how he does out of this straightaway here. Decent, good straightaway. A few light taps down there, nothing super major. I mean, he's still going straight. You see his handlebars in the back flapping around a little bit. Again, aerodynamically, that is just going to kill him. But overall, it doesn't seem to be, you know, hurting him too bad. And he continues to move up. Wow. Great run. Great run by Jan.
Well, he was in a little group of 3 sleds covered by just 0.03 of a second with Batazzo and Loacker right behind him after the first heat. And he's opened up, he was 100th ahead of Jürgen Loacker. He's opened up a 0.16 of a second advantage. So that was a really nice second run.
Yeah, it definitely was. Very consistent. And I think for Jan, he should be very happy with that. Good consistent starts, got faster in second run. That gives the pilot that much more to work with. And he definitely, you know, had a great run overall.
Well, listen, I've suggested all week that the very first competitive run of a new season is different. I mean, is that how it felt to you when you stood up there in the blocks for the first time? Okay, you've done your training, you've run the track, but now the clocks are running and the focus is on you. Does that first heat of the season feel any different, really?
It doesn't feel any different. Obviously, the more experience you have, the more used to that feeling you get. But definitely the first time, spending 6-7 months away from the sport, it does add a little bit more pressure and a little bit more nerves, and you kind of just want to get the first one out of the way slightly. But overall, I mean, it's the start of a season, and that's very exciting to see what's to come for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, really exciting for us, especially as the pressure starts to build towards Sochi. Well, Rico Peter using a 4-man built by the Swiss Citius project, high-tech group of companies and universities. Let's see what he can produce here. Lots of cowbells. It's no longer just a Swiss prerogative to have cowbells at the start. They've made their way around many, many tracks. And I think the athletes really like to have a lot of noise at the top end. And it just kind of helps build the atmosphere.
You definitely do. I mean, the more noise you can have at the start, the better. It just amps you up that much more. It gets you that much more fired up and going. And when you're pushing something that weighs a buttload of weight, you want all that extra little energy that you possibly can have. So it's always great when you've got fans at the top.
Who knew that noise generated adrenaline? 700ths of a lead. It's a tiny margin. He's just about clinging on. This is ahead of a good run of Jan Verber. Same speed,
nice.
No, just a fraction slower than the Czechs.
He is, but that straightaway was awesome. You'll see it. Hopefully he'll carry his speed down through the bottom. Still 300ths up. That straightaway really helped him out. Gave him a big lead, big advantage, and remain 300.
Whoa, tiny advantage. Verber came down 200ths quicker, so that was a first round advantage carried over. Well, what about that? You know, if you're in a race, let's look at this from 2 different points of view. If you're in a race and you're the race leader and you've got, I don't know, a few hundreds or maybe a 1/10.5 advantage, how would you think if they came in and introduced a rule that just said first heat sets where you start the second heat, but you don't get a head start? You all start from 0.
Yeah, that's part of what makes our sport. It's about being consistent. I mean, you see it at a World Championships or Olympics. It's 2 days. It's 4 heats. That's how you determine who the best people are. It's not just the one-off, and it shouldn't come down to a fluke. So I'm a big fan of keeping it, you know, over the 2 runs, and, you know, that's how you're really going to see who the best people are.
All right, there's the athlete's view of that. And we still see a lot of changes. I mean, you know, this sport is so close now. And at the moment, it is Rico Peter leading by just 300ths of a second, with right behind him, Canada 2. This is Chris Spring, Tim Randall, Adam Rozenki, and Ben Coquell, straight out of the blocks.
Good load, 5:09 start. That's 200ths faster. A very, very strong start from those guys. A very good load. They've really given Spring the best advantage possible to get them down this track. Nice bit of a skid out of 3, not ideal. Definitely want to clean that up, but he's got 2/10ths to work with, so we'll see what he can do down here through this section of the track.
But again, speaking with your brakeman's hat on, when you, like the 3 guys behind Chris there, when they start 5:09, that's going to be one of the top 5 or 6 starts in the competition. They're going to be so stoked about their athletic performance.
And they should be. I mean, that's a great athletic performance, especially when you've added a new guy such as Ben Coquell in there. Yeah, very strong performance. They've done everything they could possibly do, and Spring seems to be holding the advantage. So he's definitely, you know, anything they've given him at the start, he's worked with it at the bottom, and that's great to see.
55.63 slide. They go into the lead. Graham Richardson holds his finger up, and that's an improvement on his first heat. They started 200ths quicker. Chris kept that pace right the way down the track to finish 200ths quicker as well. Again, gets that tight first run out of the way, relaxing into the second.
Bit of a rough transition in through here. Out of 3, I mean, you want to be going straight there. You don't want to have any sideways movement, and you just see the sled, you know, cleaning that straight away with what little bit of snow and ice chips that are in there for the next sled to come down. So that for sure is going to cost him a bit of time, but we'll see what, you know, the Russians and the Germans to come can do with that. But overall, very consistent.
Russia 2, Alexander Kasyanov at the top of the track. 400s quicker than our current leader, Chris Spring of Canada 2, and just 500s away from a top 10 finish for his first World Cup race here at Lake Placid. A little bit of indetermination in the form filling out in the team captains meeting. A Singer or a Valna sled. Doesn't look to me like the current Valna, which has got a more straight rear end behind those handles. We'll see that from Alexander Zubkov. And the Russians, well, as you might expect, with Sochi on the horizon, kind of trying to find the right kit and the right teams and put all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, Kayleen. It seems like it should be so easy. Nothing's easy in this sport. Nothing's
easy. Everything is very technical when it comes down to hundredths of a second. I mean, you're training as hard as you can in this summer. It could be at the start. It could be on the drive down. It could be, you know, your sled or your runners. It comes down to everything. But at the end of the day, it comes down 5:15 start from the Russians. It comes down to what you give it at the start on the day and what you can do with what you have.
One of the additions they've made is Pierre Luders, the former Canadian driver and coach, so they are not messing around. They are hiring and buying everything they possibly can to get themselves into the right position for Sochi. 700ths of a second behind Chris Spring. This is underlining, I think, what a good start, what a good run Canada 2 had. And Chris, like these guys, aiming to get into the top 10. I think he might have a top 10 finish on this outing, but I think Kasyanov is bringing it back from here. 125.5 is not quick enough, Kaylee. He's going to go further back.
He is. He's just going to keep falling, and you're just going to see it. The rest of it's uphill, and the speed that you have that you've carried down from 14 down into 17, that's what sets you up for the bottom when it goes uphill. And if you don't see the speed down at the bottom, unfortunately, you're going to bleed time no matter how good of a pilot you are.
400s quicker than Chris Spring in the first heat, 2/10 slower on that second run. That was not what he needed. Well, there are your leaders, Canada 2, Chris Spring and the team. Fast 10 still to come here in Lake Placid. Well, that is the standings. Spring with a decent run. Now, can he bust into the top 10? Find out right after this.
At the box office there. So take a look online, see what's happening. Full schedule. We've got, of course, the huge hockey tournament in town. It's great to see everybody here. And it's wonderful to have this FIBT Bob and Skeleton event taking place while you're in town.
2-minute warning, the Maximilian. 2 minutes.
And a reminder that at noon, after the conclusion of this second run, we're going to wander down toward the bottom of the track there where you came in, near the big entrance. You'll see a tent and a deck, and just below that you'll see some fires down there. We've got a stage set up where our World Cup medalists will be awarded their World Cup medals that they're earning right now in this second run. And we invite you to come down there and join us. It's a great way to see these guys. They're great athletes, very great people, and they're thrilled to be here along with you. And they're happy to say hello and sign a few autographs. So hopefully we'll see you down at Medals Plaza after the completion of the second run. The schedule calls for the ceremony to start noon, maybe a little before, so about an hour from now.
Yeah, but you find that, like, do you know what I mean? And I don't cheer, I cheer super hard for Lyndon, and I'm going to cheer super hard for Spring and Kripps, you know, the up-and-coming young brother that you just want to see achieve really well. But you also have your other friends on tour, friends that you've been with for forever that you're like, do good.
Beautiful, sunny Lake Placid in the Adirondack Mountains. Big crowd down here Saturday morning to see the four-man race, the end of the World Cup weekend here, the first of the season. And those at the start saw some drama in the first heat. This is Max Arndt's crew. Marco Hubenbecker, the giant 6'7" man at 2. Watch him on the left-hand side. Steps up onto the back bunk, the bail, foot slips, on the handle, and then Alex Mann, look at this, single-handed deadlift. That's 220 pounds of sheer muscle. But the agony on Hubenbecker's face was not just physical, that was mental as well. I'm Martin Haven, alongside me, Kaylee Humphries. Kaylee, they'll be desperately hoping now for no such mishaps. They're in the top 10, and they want to move onwards and upwards, whereas your teammates, Chris Spring there on the left, and the boys, they want to bust into that top 10 position as well. They all get in safely, and it's another 5-10 getaway, but this time without the wrestling, without the bodies jumping about, so they'll be carrying more speed onto the first few corners.
Yeah, they definitely will. You saw a little bit of a mishap with the foot. That's going to happen. 4 guys trying to get into a tiny little area, but generally much cleaner, much smoother than their first run mishap, and they're just going to be happy just to have a good, consistent push from before. Max seems to be like he's just, you know, letting it run, letting it all hang out, and you're going to see him move up, I think, quite a few spots from, you know, from not having the mishap as he did in first round.
Yeah, we expect to see him well up the top 10. You don't expect German sleds to be down at the bottom. Christoph Langendassen, but
skid down there. He looked like he was coming through the straightaway, a light little tap, and it ended up just sending him completely sideways down the straightaway.
If you end up just nicking the right-hand front corner there, it almost always seems to keep the tail out wide. 100th of a second, keeping Canada 2 out of the top 10 at the moment. But it's by no means certain that the remaining 9 sleds will all go quicker. And this is a very tight group as well, from Chris Spring in 12th position up to 8th place, under 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, anything can happen, and as you see, he just about squeaks by there, but it causes his sled to go completely sideways down the straightaway, and that's just going to kill his time and speed. And that's where he went from being, you know, 1500ths up to all of a sudden, you know, barely squeaking by 1/100th, and that's when you know you've got Springs guys wishing that they just busted out that extra little bit more just to reach into the top 10. But that's how, you know, that's how racing goes.
Might still happen. 500s quicker than Max Arndt in the first heat. In 9th position, Edwin van Kalker of the Netherlands. We'll be looking at man at 2, his brother Arnold. It was again another 6-footer because he didn't seem to get into the sled properly. His head seemed to be higher than the driver's all the way down the track. That's a big figure of Alex Mann there, being congratulated by the Canadians, one of the brakemen on our leader Max Arndt's Germany 2 sled. Well, this is the only Dutch 4-man, but they've got Ivo de Bruyn in the 2-man World Cup as well. Both had really good races yesterday.
As you can see in this one, we'll see what they can start here. You know, we saw first run, they're real high in that sled. They're sitting real high. They're tall guys. They're going to want to try and get down and not slap around so much on the way down. It really is just going to cost some time and aerodynamically speed as well.
Well, Arnold van Kalker at 2, you can still see his helmet slapping around all over the place. I mean, apart from anything else, getting, you know, his head sticking up in the airstream, and we understand that causes drag, but that can't be comfortable. That's got to really hurt.
No, his head looks like a bauble doll, you know, just bouncing around there, and his poor neck is going to be very, very sore tomorrow, but it also makes that very difficult from the pilot.
You know, when you take a taxi bob ride in the 4-man, that's me. I'm like sticking my head out behind the driver and over the driver's helmet to see where I'm going. But I'm a tourist. You know, I'm taking a trip down the track, not trying to win by 100th of a second, and that can't be helping. Well, they were 100th up at the start, but they're 400s behind in 3rd place. So Chris Spring gets into the top 10. That's how tight this little group of sleds is now, and you'll see this all the way up and down the order. They, by 400s, lose 2 positions.
Yeah, it's very, very tight, close racing, and I mean, it could come down to the way they're sitting. It can come down to just about anything 400. So you see the heads just bobbling around. I mean, that's A, not comfortable, B, that's a lot of extra weight shifting side to side. Aerodynamically, the wind and the drag, it's just not fast. And you just bleed time the whole way down. They're really going to need to clean that up for Salt Lake next week.
Well, just with us, back to us on the left is Arnold van Kalker. He's the man who's going to have the stiff neck in the morning. Next up, 8th place first heat run. Great effort from John Jackson in GB1. Stu Benson, Bruce Tasker, Joel Fearon are the 4-man crew of GB1. And they ripped off a 5:08 start, a really big start. 5th quickest in the field. And they are 600s behind Lyndon Rush in 7th. So Max Arndt to Germany, the current leader. This Singer sled, with work by McLaren International, the Formula One team. Well, you talk about the hit, Kaylee. This is where all 4 athletes hopefully start moving the sled together, not just as a sort of staggered effect, but one big input of power to really get the...
Yes, you're going to see some of the pilots that are going to start standing at the bar. You're going to see some of them that are going to run kind of at a bit of an angle at the bar from the pilot's point of view. The 2 side guys are really the powerful guys. Those are the guys that are going to get it going, get it moving as fast as possible on the flat because they get in really quick. And the brakeman, you know, ideally he's the fastest guy that can just run it out until all of the other 2 guys or 3 guys in front of him are loaded and down it in.
Good run. He was 1900s up, still 1600s up, and I just got to go back to that start. 5:04, that's the same as Oscar's Melbardis, 3rd quickest in the competition. That's an epic start from the British team.
They are. They're having a great starting race, this race, and you're seeing it down near the finish. But definitely they should be extremely happy with their starts today. Those are some of the best I've ever seen them have.
This is a great start to the season from John Jackson. Not one great start and one good run. That's 2 epic starts and a really good drive. When was the last time he beat Max Arndt? I've been asked in my ears by our director, John Morgan. I don't know. You would have to go back and look in the books for that. This is a really solid run. 8th place after the first heat. Won't drop any lower.
They're going to be very, very happy with this result today. A, with their pushing, it's awesome, and B, you know, they're really coming out strong. This is where they're going to want to be. A great first 4-man race for them. Good, consistent driving, amazing starts. Great first start season.
Last year, Great Britain Bobsleigh initiated Project 50 because in 2014 it'll be 50 years since Nash and Dixon won Olympic gold in 1964, and they are aiming to try and get in among the medals in Sochi. Great Britain lead, 7 to go. This is Lyndon Rush, Canada's last sled and best hope. Katie, feel free to get emotional. 5:07, that's a big start.
Hopefully I don't go quiet. I want to watch so bad and cheer so hard. 5:07, they're a bit off GB at that start. They're really going to have to try and clean that up for the next race, but generally, you know, they've got some work to do, and they're not going to be super stoked with that. They're even now. We'll see what Lyndon can do. You know, he's got some great experience. He's got some really, really great driving skills, and the Eurotechs are amazing sleds, so he's still trying to figure it out. Only 100th behind. There's still lots of track left.
He gets a great run out of Shady and through the chicane. He could pick up a 1/10 of a second easy, and he's still tied for the lead. This is so close. 1:25.5. Good speeds as well, Kate.
Great speed, great straightaway. You're going to see him here. They're riding awesome in this sled. The guys are behind. They're already 300s up, and they're just going to keep gaining all the rest of the way down. That was an amazing run from Lyndon and his crew.
55-65, exactly the same time as the GB sled, so the only difference between them was in the first heat. 55-65. He digs in deep at the bottom of the track, and there are so many elements of this track that can cost you, and the top cost him a little, but the bottom he was good.
Yeah, this corner here, little bit of a skid, a little bit of a banana, just kind of makes for a bit of a harsh entrance into 3. Generally nothing major. You know, this straightaway, this is perfect. You can't get any better than this. That's what's going to carry your speed in and down through the bottom. This is what makes a good run. This is what makes, you know, and shows the character of a good pilot, a good crew, a good team, consistent starts. Saying hi to his daughters there. He's got three very beautiful daughters.
Top of the track as we get into our final fast 6 is Oskars Melbardis of Latvia. 5:04 first start. We thought perhaps he might be the fastest starter in the field. That's habitually been his way, but turns out he wasn't. That honour went to Nick Cunningham of the USA. USA 2 sled with the fastest getaway of all. Now, what can the Latvian do? Like Kaylee Humphreys beside me, he was a former brakeman. And again, you know, we talked about this yesterday with Kurt Tomasevich. Any coach would love to have a fast athlete that they can teach to drive. Teaching a driver to go faster is a lot different proposition.
100%. I mean, you see it here. Look at his legs, so powerful, and his whole crew. They're just beasts and monsters out there. 5:01. You knew that was going to happen. They were amped up. They love having that start record. That is what is going to give Oscars the best chance to be the best of the bottom. And, you know, he's only been on tour a couple years as a pilot, and you're just going to see him get better and better. And he's got the start. He crushes the field in his starts, not only in 2-man, but also, as we see now, in 4-man.
Well, these guys are huge, aren't they? I mean, they're not giants. They're not tallest of the athletes, but boy, they are packed with muscle. They are, and he's having a great run so far. Bit late down into 12, but he seems to recover really nicely there. He's maintaining his lead. 1:24.2 and a big skid, not as quick as the Canadian sled, over a kilometre an hour slower. Yeah, it's going to come down right to the hundreds. He's 200ths behind now. That skid and that straightaway cost him a lot of time, and unfortunately you're going to see him drop 2 places there. Wow, so top 6 finish for Lyndon Rush, down to no worse than 8th for Oscars Melbardis. Sometimes it comes down to that one corner, and for him that was 14 today, and that's the experience and the inexperience as a pilot, but he's going to get that over the next little bit, and he's going to be unstoppable when he does. Wow, massive start from these guys, and they went 300ths quicker than their first start. I wonder if USA 2 can improve on theirs by that much. 5:01, that is amazing. Huge effort. And as Melbardis polishes up his driving skills, don't forget he's only been driving sleds for 2 seasons, and he's up against guys like Stephen Holcomb and Alexander Zubkov who've been doing it, well, not for 2 decades, but certainly for a lot longer. Melbardis is beating himself up for giving away time. That'll come. Fast 5 remain here in Lake Placid. This is Francesco Friedrich, Germany 3. He's the best placed German sled. Beg your pardon, he's not. He's the second best placed German sled, but he had a good first run.
5:12, very consistent to his first run push.
Former junior world champion and a late addition to the World Cup team. It's not that he was kind of on the sofa, not expecting to be doing anything, but with the retirement of Karl Anger just literally 2 weeks before the start of the season, just before the German trials, suddenly they were trying to assemble a crew and get everything together.
The Germans have some great depth, and you're seeing that here. You know, you get one guy that drops out, and there's another guy right behind him just to fill his spot. Amazing speed down through that straightaway. He's really got that speed coming, and you're seeing that he just keeps gaining time and gaining time. That speed is so critical, and having that speed in order to gain that extra needed time down near the bottom.
Well, it is goodbye then from the leaders box from Lyndon Rush and the crew. Curtis Sorensen, Lascelles Brown, Neville Wright. But they guarantee themselves a top 6 finish. Francesco Friedrich, his World Cup debut here in Lake Placid. The man from Saxony in eastern Germany. That's where the Altenburg track is. René Spies is smiling, isn't he? And so is Francesco as well.
Great start to the season for him. You know, great first opener on the World Cup in here in Lake Placid, and he should be very happy with that result. Little tap there on the left-hand side. You know, again, little tap on the right just sets him up. But again, his sled's running straight. His guys are tucked in nice and low. You don't see movement. Aerodynamically, can't get much better than that.
Well, Francesco, World Cup rookie, as is his brakeman Gino Gerhardi. Spoke to them a couple of days ago for the first time, and what a charming young guy. Next up then, our fast 4. World Cup rookie will guarantee himself a top 5 finish. Francesco Friedrich, our race leader. But what about Nick Cunningham? 700ths of a second somewhere in the 2 heats yesterday would have seen him on an all-US podium in the 2-man. He finished 4th, and he's in 4th place at the moment. He needs to find a little more than 700ths, but a 1/10 of a second could see him in the medals.
Good.
He's definitely going to be going for the medals now, 100%. He's gunning. He wants that medal, same from yesterday. He wants it real bad, so you're going to see these guys give him everything, and the team really wants to get on the podium, but Francesco definitely gave him a run for his money down at the bottom, so this should be a very close race.
Fastest start of the day so far in first heat came from these guys at 5:02. The bar's been raised to 5:01. They go 5:02 again. National Guard crew are underway.
Can't get much better than that. Two very consistent and some of the fastest starts we've seen on tour in a very long time. Their crew has definitely given Nick the best possible chance to drive this track and get them a medal. 3/10 up. Nick's having an awesome run so far. He knows this track. He knows what he's doing, and he's letting it run. It just looks fast.
Well, there's a great bobsleigh expression that I have to modify slightly for TV, which is let it fly. And that's exactly what he's trying to do. The more you steer, like with a racing car, the more you slow yourself down. Wow.
Yeah, he's got amazing speed there. You just see him continuing to gain time. He's having an awesome run. He's driving it very well. He wants that medal real bad, and you can see it, and he is about to walk away with it.
Wow, that is a very big effort. 55-34 slide. Look at him. Underwhelmed totally by that, beating the sled up as he comes in. That is a great drive.
Yeah, that was a very, very strong run. He set himself up in the best possible position. Manuel, Steven Alexander have some work to do.
Super stoked, Nick Cunningham. His training regime here at Lake Placid was interrupted by the big hurricane. He and his unit went down to New York City and to New Jersey for a few days to help out the folks in trouble down there, and then came back and got on with the program here in Lake Placid.
You see him come out of Shady, dead straight. He's taken every ounce of speed out of that corner possible, 11 to 12 on the flat part of the section. It just looked effortless, and he's going to take every advantage, and you see it at the bottom with the fastest speed and down with the time.
That's him as the leader, and that coming up the finish straight was, that's what I got, what do you guys have? Now we get to find out. 3 to go. Germany's remaining hope for medal, Manuel Mahara. The crew started 5:09 first heat. 5:10, 800ths of a second of their 10th of a second lead has gone. They get to corner 3 just in front of Nick Cunningham, but it is inches in it. 200ths of a second, Katie. This is going to be too tight to call.
It's going to be very tight, and Nick from this point on just rocked it. So, Manu's really got to step it up. Now they're dead even as they come out of Shady. We're going to see it's all going to come down to corner 14 coming up here, and now he's down a bit of time, and Nick really accelerated. Manu hit a couple of the corners. Nick went straight through.
126.4 to 126.8 for the US sled. He's behind. He hasn't got the speed. The gap is growing.
I think Nick's about to take it. He's going to walk with at least a bronze, and he does.
Cunningham is in the medals. Just so tantalizingly close yesterday, but he will finish on the podium here. And there are 2 sleds to go. Nick Cunningham, USA 2, is our race leader.
Up next, we'll have our top
Cunningham, originally from Monterey, California, lives in Lake Placid, New York. This is his home track. And Manuel Mahara, look at the beard and the facial growth he's got going on for Movember. Looks like he's a bobsledder from 100 years ago.
He is, comes down, light little tap there on the right and left. Generally not much you can do as a pilot. You try and set up as best you can. You take the taps. He kept going straight. He did everything he could possibly do, but Nick just had a smoker of a run.
Yep, absolutely did. That was a really solid run. 55.34 for Cunningham, 55.52 for Mahara. 2 to go. Here's your world champion. Steve Holcomb won 2-man and 4-man gold on this track. The last 4 World Cup and World Championship 4-man competitions in Lake Placid have all been won by Stephen Holcomb. Whatever else happens after this run, we will have a US sled leading with 1 man still to come. A lot of noise as the explosive start comes off the blocks for the USA crew. 5:02. Another big start that ties the fastest in the first heat.
Both of these guys now, I mean, you got Holcomb versus Nick. Both of these guys know the track well. You know, Holcomb's got a bit more experience on here. He's got the results from last year, you know, and World Championships, but we'll see what it comes down to.
Kaylee, he was 1800s up on Nick Cunningham from the first run, and their starts were identical. He's come from 18 down to 1200s in front of Cunningham. Of course, his target is not holding off Cunningham, it's trying to catch Alexander Zubkov. Staying in front of Nick Cunningham isn't the battle. Trying to lay down a run that Zubkov can't match is. He does hold on in front of Cunningham, 55.39, slower than Nick Cunningham's run. Does that mean that the speed has come out of the track and Cunningham might have got the last fast run? Well, now that run might be worrying the Russian coaches. Holcomb leads, Cunningham second, Mahara third.
Great start by these guys. I mean, 5:02 consistently, both pushes. They're an experienced crew, and it just shows here. Down and in, super quick. They've taken every little bit of velocity they possibly can. Holcomb, an amazing pilot, a guy that I honestly strive to be just like and chat to quite a bit about experience. So,
well, you saw the fastest man through the chicane was Nick Cunningham. There's your race leader. USA first and second yesterday in the two-man. They are first and second at the moment in the four-man. A man who could upset Steve Holcomb's streak in four-man here, which is the last 4 World Cup and World Championship races at Lake Placid. You're looking at him now, Russia's Alexander Zubkov. Led by 1500s after the first heat.
They had a 5:06 push time on the first run. They're going to look to better that this run, especially when you've got Holcomb and Nick that are pushing 5:02. We'll see what these guys can do here. 5:02 matches Holcomb. This crew definitely is amped up, ready to go. They want this win bad.
They really do. Oh, big skid there, though.
Big skid due to 3. You're going to see that it's going to hurt his time, not immediately, but definitely a little bit later on down this track.
Wow, they got lots of momentum into the sled. 1500s from the first heat out to 2/10 over Steve Holcomb. Holding that advantage as they get to Shady. Halfway down the track, he still has the lead.
He's having a good run. He's letting it fly. You can really see that. Sled looks fast. Nice straightaway. 125.7 speed down in through the bottom. He's going to be able to maintain that, hold that, and he's going to walk away with the win here today.
1600s, it might come down to single digits. It's 1900s, 55.35 run. Victory for Alexander Zubkov. Celebration for Pierre Luders, the coach. Zubkov pumps the air as he takes the gold medal in Lake Placid. The first World Cup race of the season. And Russia and Germany have dominated four-man competition. They had won the last 9 four-man World Cup races everywhere, and now they have won again. So the Russians will be happy with that. Steve Holcomb's streak here in four-man in Lake Placid has come to an end. He won the World Championships in February. A World Cup race, he'll be disappointed, but he won't be overly disappointed about that. He's still got a long way to go till the Worlds in St. Moritz. Well, Zubkov, the gold medalist here. Steve Holcomb takes the silver. And Nick Cunningham from 4th to 3rd. A great final run for Cunningham to avenge the lack of a medal yesterday. He puts USA 2 on the podium. But it is Russia 1 who takes gold in Lake Placid. Well, he faltered in two-man, but Zubkov set the pace in the first heat in the four-man competition and held his lead and his nerve, extending his advantage by a precious few hundredths of a second to claim the gold medal here. Well, there is Ivo Ferriani in the hat, the FIBT president. Nick Cunningham offers his congratulations to our race winner, Alexander Zubkov. Stephen Holcomb, 1900s back. Nick Cunningham moving up to 3rd place. So no German sled on the podium. Mahara and rookie Friedrich 4th and 5th. Ahead of Canada's Lyndon Rush and John Jackson of Great Britain. Really good. I shall. I'll probably come and join you on the deck in a few minutes. Get out that sunshine. Yeah. A bright and sunny Lake Placid crowd, and down in the finish area at the Adirondack track, we're waiting for the presentation of the flowers to our top three after the first 4-man's World Cup race of the season. And it was a race that was won by Alexander Zubkov of Russia. He led after the first heat from Steve Holcomb, the man who has won his last 4 trips down this track in 4-man in World Cup and World Championship competition. But Holcomb could not find the magic he needed in the second run to overhaul the Russia. Zubkov adding 400ths more to his first round advantage to win by nearly 0.2 of a second, going away from USA sleds that took the second and third places on the podium. So accurate take for the USA, 2 sleds on the podium, with the Russians claiming the top step. Well, confirmation then, the World Cup being led in a 4-man by Alexander Zubkov, Steve Holcomb in second, Nick Cunningham in third. Let's get down to the top 3. They are down on the finish dock with John Morgan ready for the flower ceremony.
Flower ceremony for the first World Cup 4-man race of the 2012-13 season, and pretty impressive day of bobsled racing. And like we did yesterday, we got a guy up here who won his first ever World Cup medal, Team Nick Cunningham. You guys had great starts, and boy, did you have a great second run.
It really was. It's one of those ones that we can really kind of put together and build off of, really carrying momentum from last year into this year. And for myself and the rest of Team USA, really want to kind of build upon each other and really push each other to be the best. And I believe that's what we're really doing.
I got to really ask you, do you think this medal was possible?
You always got to think it's possible. You want to win every day, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So of course, every day it's always possible.
Pretty impressive, guys. Thank you. Okay. Over to third place, Team Steve Holcomb in the night train. Did you like your trip, Steve?
I made a few mistakes on the second run, my fault. But we're out here. This isn't Pee Wee Bobsled. We're out here fighting against the best. Zubkov's been around longer than I have, and he showed it today. He really came out, did well, great pushes. These guys came out and pushed well. They've been working hard all week, been working hard all summer, and it's going well. It's a good motivation for the next weekend.
Oh, great job today, silver medal. Now on to the gold medal for Team Zubkov. Been disappointing at Lake Placid. Gold medal is good.
Спасибо, конечно, и за хорошую работу главного тренера. И, конечно, вся работа команды сделалась на 100%. Поэтому идем вперед, не оглядываясь назад. Спасибо всем.
Well, he says thanks to a lot of people, but he's very happy he finally has a gold medal.
Well, you've got to think that Alexander Zubkov very happy to come here after the World Championships and beat Steve Holcomb first time out on home ice. Holcomb and Nick Cunningham completing the podium at the end of the first World Cup of the 2012-13 season. And that brings us to the end of the action here in Lake Placid for the season opener. We move on now in fast forward to Park City, Utah, the venue for the 2002 Winter Olympic Games for the second race. Don't forget you can catch all the skeleton and bobsleigh action wherever you are on the FIBT website or live on air. My thanks to everybody here for joining us and everybody who's been in the booth alongside me. We hope you've enjoyed yourselves as much as we have. We'll see you in Park City, Utah. Bye for now.